Vincent was still leaning over his pilot's shoulder. Hoping she'd never find out, he had completely forgotten her name. So far, it hadn't been an issue as they navigated between the flowing tide of ships. So what's the ship? Is it big? Small? Fast? It's not fast. The avian Zeno said, as she kept juking the craft this way and that to avoid the civilian traffic. It's a reclamator. A what? He asked, glancing down at his pilot. She let out a chirp. You didn't learn back in school? Oh. She remembered why it was Vincent wouldn't have any idea how all this worked. Very large ship of sorts. Not made to be off-planet. Reclaims old ships. City block modules. Recycles whatever it is. Processes and reforges metals. Electronics. Things like this. Several operate on the edges of the city. Specialized work done to refit docks for new type of ships. Or build prototype modules as well. Many number of things, she finally pointed out. And Vincent peered ahead. What he saw was massive indeed. It looked like someone had slapped some engines onto a massive metal octopus made of hard angles. It was wrapped around a city block at the edge of the framework. He could see sparks here and there as the block was apparently getting broken down. What he was more interested in was the blocky section between the engines and the block itself. If the wardens were hiding something here, it would have to be in that section. So, do they just break apart the block all at once? No. They strip layer by layer. The outer sections are broken down by plasma torches and then sent to processing. The inner structure is usually removed intact. Then either rebuilt or recycled. Gotcha. Vincent looked at the outside of the reclamator, trying to spot any access points that would lead inside. He pointed to a small, barely visible hatch on the side. Is that a way in? The pilot shook her head. That's just for emergency access for maintenance workers. It would be heavily reinforced. So how do we get in? We don't. She said simply. We're supposed to wait until it docks. It's got a processing schedule. Each reclamator takes a city block, works on it for a few days, then docks to unload the raw materials and pick up a new block. That's our best bet for getting in unnoticed. A few days? Vincent groaned. I don't have a few days. The preacher is about to unleash some new prototype to whip the crowds into a frenzy. We need to stop him now, before he does any more damage. The pilot sighed. I understand the urgency. But this is a massive operation. Trying to break in now would alert everyone. We'd be swarmed before we even got inside. Vincent knew she was right, but the thought of the preacher spreading more hatred, controlling more minds, made his blood boil. He had to find a way. All right, he said, rubbing his chin. What about a distraction? Something big enough to pull security away, but not so big that it causes mass panic? The pilot thought for a moment. There's a nearby maintenance hub. It controls the power distribution for this entire sector of the city. A temporary power surge there could divert attention, cause enough localized chaos to create an opening. Perfect, Vincent said, a plan forming in his mind. Can you get me there? It's heavily guarded, and the system is isolated. She warned. It's not just a matter of flipping a switch. I don't need to flip a switch, Vincent replied, a determined glint in his eye. I need to make enough noise to get their attention, then slip into the reclamator. He turned to her. What's your name? My apologies, sir. It's Kara. Kara? Vincent repeated, nodding. Thank you. Now, take me to that maintenance hub, and be ready to pick me up when I give the signal. Kara altered their course, guiding the stealth ship towards the maintenance hub. The sheer scale of the city, with its endless layers of buildings and constant flow of traffic, was mesmerizing and daunting at the same time. This was a city that never slept. A living, breathing entity of metal and light. They approached the maintenance hub, a fortress-like structure embedded deep within the city's infrastructure. It was surrounded by armed guards and automated turrets. This was going to be a challenge. Kara piloted the ship with practiced ease, weaving through the dense aerial traffic of the city. Vincent, now fully focused, activated his mosque's enhanced visual and auditory sensors. Scanning the maintenance hub for any weaknesses, the structure was a monolithic cube of reinforced steel. With minimal external features, guards patrolled its perimeter, their energy rifles held at the ready. There's a main power conduit on the north side, Vincent observed, pointing to a thick bundle of cables running into the hub. If I can create a localized overload there, it should draw their attention. It's a risky approach. Kara warned, that conduit is vital. Any significant damage could cause a cascade failure across the sector. I'm not going to damage it, Vincent clarified. Just overload it enough to trigger a surge. A temporary disruption. It'll create a light show and sound alarm, pulling their security forces to investigate. Kara nodded, bringing the ship closer to the hub's exterior. All right, but you'll have a narrow window. Once the surge hits, they'll lock down the area. You'll need to move fast. I always do, Vincent said, preparing his gear. He checked his grappling hook, his magnum, and his stun grenades. He knew this infiltration would rely heavily on speed and precision. Kara brought the ship into position, hovering silently near the power conduit. Vincent opened the side hatch, the wind rushing past him. He attached his grappling hook to a nearby structural beam and rappelled down, landing silently on a narrow ledge overlooking the conduit. He quickly attached a small, specialized device to the conduit, designed to create a controlled energy surge without causing permanent damage. He activated it, and with a low hum, the device began to draw power, slowly building to an overload. A few tense moments passed. Then, with a blinding flash of light and a deafening crackle of electricity, the power conduit surged. Alarms immediately blared throughout the maintenance hub, their piercing sound echoing across the sector. Lights flickered, and distant sirens began to wail. Go, go, go. Kyra's voice crackled over his comm. Vincent moved instantly. He saw guards rushing towards the surging conduit, their attention diverted. He found a less guarded access panel near the conduit, a service entrance for technicians, and quickly bypassed its security lock. He slipped inside, the sounds of the alarm fading behind him as the heavy door sealed shut. He found himself in a cramped, dark service tunnel, smelling faintly of ozone and old machinery. He moved quickly, his mosque's night vision activating, guiding him through the labyrinthine passages. He could hear the distant sounds of security personnel moving through the hub, their voices muffled by the thick walls. His goal was to reach an external access point of the reclamator. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The reclamator was a highly secure industrial vehicle, likely with its own extensive internal security, but the diversion would buy him precious time. He navigated the tunnels, avoiding maintenance drones and automated security systems, relying on his instincts and his knowledge of similar industrial layouts. He finally found an exit point, a heavily reinforced blast door leading out onto one of the reclamator's massive mechanical arms. He bypassed the lock, and the door hissed open, revealing a breathtaking and terrifying sight. He was suspended in the air, high above the city, on the vast, metallic arm of the reclamator. Below him, the city sprawled out, an endless tapestry of lights. All around him, sparks flew as the reclamator's plasma torches slowly dismantled the attached city block. He felt the immense vibration of the reclamator's machinery, the grinding and tearing of metal. He had to cross this arm to reach the main body of the reclamator, where he suspected the warden's hidden section would be. He moved cautiously along the arm, using its intricate framework for cover. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burnt metal and dust. He could see more wardens patrolling the reclamator's exterior, their gray armor blending with the metallic structure. They were on high alert due to the power surge. He found a larger access hatch, disguised as part of the reclamator's internal workings. This looked promising. He quickly bypassed its security, which was more complex than the previous one, indicating it led to a more sensitive area. As he slipped inside, he heard the faint voices of wardens nearby. He was in. Now, to find out what they were hiding, he moved through a series of maintenance tunnels, his ears straining for any sounds, his eyes scanning for any clues. He needed to find the prototype the preacher was going to use. Vincent moved through the reclamator's internal tunnels, a maze of pipes, conduits, and heavy machinery. The whole structure vibrated with the immense power of its operations, creating a low, constant hum that made it difficult to hear. He could sense warden presence nearby. Their cold, controlled emotions, a stark contrast to the buzzing industrial sounds. He had to be extra cautious here. He found a set of stairs leading down into what looked like a cargo bay. It was filled with massive containers, stacked high, waiting to be processed. He moved silently between them, using the shadows and the sheer scale of the space for cover. He knew the wardens would have security here, but their attention was probably still focused on the maintenance hub distraction. Suddenly, he heard voices. They were muffled, but close. He pressed himself against a large container, listening. It was the same guttural Servian dialect he'd heard before, and the cold, detached tones of warden operatives. They were talking about the package and ensuring its stability. He peeked around the corner of the container. 2 warden guards stood by a reinforced cargo hatch, their energy rifles pointed at it. They were talking about getting it secured before transport. This was it. This had to be where the preacher's new prototype was. Vincent knew he couldn't take them both head-on without alerting the entire area. He needed an opening. He looked around, his eyes scanning for anything he could use. His gaze fell on a series of controls near a crane mechanism, designed to move the massive containers. He quickly and silently climbed onto one of the stacked containers, making his way towards the crane controls. He bypassed the simple lock, his fingers flying across the alien interface. He needed to create a distraction, something that would draw the guards away, but not raise an immediate general alarm. He activated the crane, setting it to lift a massive, empty container from a stack. The heavy machinery groaned, and the container slowly began to rise, its metallic scraping echoing in the vast bay. The warden guards immediately turned, their attention drawn to the unexpected movement. "What's going on?" one of them growled, raising his rifle. "Who authorized this?" Vincent seized the opportunity. As their backs were turned, he dropped silently behind them, his magnum already raised. He fired 2 precise shots, hitting each guard in the back of the neck with non-lethal stun rounds. They dropped to the ground, unconscious. He quickly secured the area, tying up the unconscious guards and disabling their comms. He then turned his attention to the reinforced cargo hatch. It was massive, clearly designed to hold something very important. He began to work on the hatch controls, his multi-tool connecting to the system. The lock was complex, heavily encrypted, requiring multiple layers of authentication. This was no ordinary cargo. As he worked, he could hear distant sirens, growing louder. The distraction at the maintenance hub was either over, or security forces were being redirected to the reclamator. He had to hurry. After several tense minutes, the heavy hatch hissed and slowly began to retract, revealing the cargo within. Vincent peered inside, his heart pounding. It was a single, large, cylindrical container, glowing faintly with an internal light. It was suspended in a specialized dampening field. As Vincent looked closer, he saw a series of intricate cables connected to it, pulsating with a strange, dark energy. And inside the container, through a transparent viewing panel. He saw it. It wasn't a biological weapon like the previous prototype. This was a purely technological device. Complex and menacing, it was a dark, obsidian sphere, about the size of a human head, covered in pulsating glyphs and emanating a low, rhythmic hum. Vincent felt a faint ripple of emotion from it. A wave of profound, insidious despair, almost like a localized pocket of the Void Whisperer's influence, but amplified and focused. A device, Vincent whispered, his voice grim. This was the Preacher's new prototype, not a living conduit, but a machine designed to project the same destructive influence. It was a portable, highly concentrated dispenser of hopelessness. He quickly scanned the sphere with his Mosk sensors. The readings were disturbing. It was designed to emit a specific frequency that resonated with the parts of the brain associated with despair and apathy, effectively sapping the will and hope from anyone exposed to it. It was the ultimate anti-morale weapon. He heard the sounds of footsteps approaching. Closer now. He had limited time. He needed to disable it, or at least prevent its immediate deployment. He looked at the control panel for the container. He could disconnect it from the ship's power, but that wouldn't disable the device itself, only prevent its transport. He needed to neutralize its core function. He saw a small, accessible port on the sphere's containment unit. He quickly pulled out a specialized EMP device from his belt, a last resort tool designed to disrupt complex electronics. It was risky. An EMP could destabilize the entire Reclamator's systems, but he had no choice. He attached the EMP to the port and activated it. A low whine filled the air. And then, with a sharp crackle, the obsidian sphere flickered, its ominous glow fading, and the pulsating glyphs went dark. The hum died down, replaced by a dead silence. The wave of despair dissipated. "It's done," Vincent muttered, feeling a surge of exhaustion and relief. But his relief was short-lived. A voice boomed from behind him, cold and filled with fury. "You have sealed your own fate, human." Vincent spun around, his magnum already raised. Standing at the entrance of the cargo bay was the Preacher, his eyes blazing with a cold, fanatic rage. He was surrounded by a phalanx of heavily armored warden guards, their energy rifles aimed directly at Vincent. "You meddling human," the Preacher snarled, his voice amplified, resonating with a disturbing authority. "You dare interfere with the will of the Void. You dare to extinguish the flame of despair we have painstakingly cultivated." Vincent ignored the guards, his gaze fixed on the Preacher. "You're done, Preacher. Your little propaganda machine is broken. Your prototype is inert. The people will see you for what you truly are. A manipulator. A puppet of fear." The Preacher laughed, a chilling, humorless sound. "You think this is over? You think one broken toy can stop the inevitable tide? The hearts of these people are already poisoned. They crave the chaos, the division. We merely give them what they desire." He gestured, and the warden guards advanced, their energy rifles powering up. Vincent knew he was outmatched in a direct fight against so many armed guards, especially with the Preacher's presence, which was likely amplifying their resolve. "Get out of here, Vincent." Mac's voice suddenly boomed over his comm. "Enforcer reinforcements are still en route. You can't take them all." Vincent glanced around the cargo bay. The large containers offered some cover, but he was trapped. He needed a way out, and he needed to prevent the Preacher from simply bringing in another device. He looked up at the massive crane that had moved the containers earlier. If he could crash a container down on the Preacher's position, it would at least disrupt their formation. He quickly pulled out a small, high-frequency comm scrambler and tossed it towards the Preacher's guards. It activated with a soft whine, disrupting their comms and causing brief static bursts. The guards paused, distracted by the interference. Vincent took the opportunity. firing his magnum at the overhead crane controls. Sparks flew as the control panel shattered. And the crane arm, now uncontrolled, began to swing wildly. "Fool!" the preacher shouted, realizing Vincent's intent. "You'll destroy the entire bay." A massive container, still hanging from the crane, swung precariously, then broke loose from its magnetic clamps. It plummeted towards the ground, crashing down with a deafening clang near the preacher and his guards. They scattered, narrowly avoiding being crushed. Their formation broken, Vincent used the chaos. He darted between the containers, firing stun rounds at the scattered guards. He moved with a furious determination, knowing this was his only chance to escape and regroup. The preacher, enraged, unleashed a powerful burst of concentrated psionic energy. A wave of pure despair that slammed into Vincent. It was like being hit by an invisible wall of hopelessness, sapping his will, making his muscles feel like lead. Vincent stumbled, fighting to push through the overwhelming negativity. He had felt the preacher's influence before, but never this concentrated, this direct. This was the raw power of the Void Whisperers, channeled through a fanatical human. He struggled to regain his footing, his mind screaming in protest. He could hear the preacher's triumphant laugh echoing in his head. "Your harmony is a lie. Human, despair is the only truth." But Vincent was familiar with despair. He had lived through it, overcome it. He focused on the harmony signal within himself, the calm core that had saved him countless times. He pushed back, countering the wave of negativity with a surge of quiet, resilient hope. The effect was immediate. The crushing despair lessened, allowing him to regain control. He looked up, meeting the preacher's gaze. "You underestimate me, preacher. I've walked through hell, and I've come out stronger. Your whispers of despair won't break me." The preacher's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise in their depths. He hadn't expected Vincent to resist his concentrated psionic attack. Taking advantage of the preacher's brief hesitation, Vincent fired a stun round directly at him. The preacher, distracted by Vincent's resilience, was caught off guard. The stun round hit him in the chest, and he staggered back, convulsing for a moment before collapsing to the ground. His guards, momentarily stunned by their leader's fall, hesitated. Vincent used that moment, rushing past them towards a nearby emergency exit. He still had the preacher's prototype to secure, and he needed to get it to Enforcer headquarters. He blasted open the emergency exit, emerging into a narrow, dimly lit service corridor. He could hear the sounds of warden guards converging on the cargo bay behind him. He needed to find Kara and get off this reclamator. Vincent moved through the narrow service corridor, his ears straining for the sounds of pursuit. He could hear the distant shouts of warden guards and the heavy thud of their armored boots. The preacher would be furious, and he would send everything he had after Vincent. Vincent just had to make it to Kara. He ran through a series of cramped passages, his mosque's internal mapping system guiding him towards the exterior access point where Kara was waiting. He needed to get the inert prototype to Enforcer headquarters for full analysis. He heard Kyra's voice over his comm, urgent and laced with concern. "Vincent, what's happening?" "There's a massive security lockdown on the reclamator. All access points are sealed. I took down the preacher and disabled his new prototype," Vincent replied, his voice strained. "He's enraged. I need an extraction point. Find a way to get me out of here." "Understood," Kara responded. "I'm trying to override their lockdown, but it's heavily fortified. I'll get to you. Just give me a moment." Vincent continued to run, navigating the labyrinthine corridors. He saw a blast door ahead, leading to what looked like a maintenance shaft. It was a risky move, but it might lead him to a less guarded exit. He blasted open the door with his magnum, the impact echoing through the shaft. He dropped into the dark, vertical passage, bracing himself for the fall, and began to rappel down, his grappling hook whirring as it slowly lowered him. As he descended, he could hear the sounds of warden guards above, their voices growing closer. They were definitely on his tail. He increased his speed, the cable burning against his gloved hands. He reached the bottom of the shaft. Landing hard on a narrow platform, he found himself in a vast, cavernous space, filled with massive, whirring gears and colossal pistons. It was the heart of the Reclamator's recycling mechanism. A dangerous, ever-moving machine. He quickly scanned the area. There were no obvious exits, just the crushing machinery. He could feel the vibrations of the colossal gears as they moved. Slowly, but powerfully, he needed to find a way through this mechanical death trap. Kara, I'm in the main recycling chamber, Vincent said into his comm. It's a death trap in here. I need a way out. Recycling chamber? Kyra's voice was filled with alarm. That's one of the most dangerous areas of the Reclamator. Avoid the main processing lines. They'll crush anything that falls into them. Vincent could see the main processing lines now. Massive conveyor belts moving towards grinding crushers. He also saw the wardens appearing at the top of the shaft he had just descended, firing their energy rifles down at him. He was trapped between the machinery and the enemy. He dodged a volley of energy blasts, the shots sparking against the metal around him. He had to move. He saw a narrow catwalk suspended high above the machinery, leading towards the other side of the chamber. It was a long shot, but it was his only option. He aimed his grappling hook at a beam far above, and with a grunt, fired it. The hook soared through the air. Latching onto the beam, he activated the winch, pulling himself upwards. Narrowly, avoiding another barrage of energy fire, he landed on the catwalk, his feet skidding on the greasy metal surface. He then began to run, making his way across the treacherous path. The catwalk swayed precariously, and he could feel the vibrations of the machinery beneath him. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed through the chamber. A section of the catwalk ahead of him collapsed, severed by a stray energy blast. Vincent cursed, his path blocked. He was trapped again. He looked around desperately. He saw a series of maintenance pipes running along the ceiling, leading towards what looked like another exit shaft. It was a perilous climb, but he had no choice. He launched his grappling hook again, latching onto a pipe, and began to pull himself up, hand over hand, towards the ceiling. The pipes were slick with grease and dust, making the climb difficult. He could hear the wardens below, their shouts growing closer as they found another way into the chamber. He finally reached the exit shaft. Pushing open a small access panel, he dropped into another vertical passage. His grappling hook now useless for descent, he had to free fall, relying on his mosque's internal shock absorption system to cushion his landing. He landed hard, rolling to absorb the impact. He found himself in a smaller service tunnel, dimly lit. He heard Kyra's voice over his comm. Vincent, I found a clear exit route on the lower level, a cargo bay near the external transfer docks. Can you make it there? I'm on my way, Vincent replied, pushing himself to his feet, his body aching. He knew this was his last chance. He sprinted through the tunnels, following Kyra's directions. He could feel the vibrations of the Reclamator's engines and the faint hum of its external docking systems. He was getting closer to the outside. He burst into the cargo bay, seeing the massive external transfer dock opening up. Kyra's stealth ship was already there, hovering just outside the opening. Get in, Vincent, Kara shouted, opening the hatch. Vincent didn't hesitate. He leapt into the ship, the hatch sealing behind him. Kara immediately pulled away from the Reclamator, speeding into the open sky. leaving the chaos behind them, as Kyra's stealth ship sped away from the reclamator. Vincent finally allowed himself to relax. Slumping into the pilot's co-seat, he was exhausted, but the inert prototype, now safely secured in the ship's cargo hold, was a testament to their success. "Well done, Vincent," Kara said, a hint of relief in her voice. "That was a close one. They've sealed off the entire sector behind us. No one's getting in or out for a while." "Good," Vincent muttered. "It'll buy us time to get this back to Xylan." The flight back to Enforcer headquarters was uneventful. Vincent kept his comm open, receiving updates from Mach. The preacher had been taken into custody, along with his remaining guards. The Warden's localized operations in that sector were effectively crippled. Back at headquarters, the inert prototype was immediately transferred to a high-security analysis lab. Xylan and a team of top Enforcer scientists began dissecting it, trying to understand its inner workings and how the Wardens had managed to create such a potent device. Vincent, after a much-needed rest and a medical checkup, joined them in the lab. He used his empathic abilities to feel the residual energy signatures of the device, helping the scientists pinpoint its emotional frequency and how it interacted with the human psyche. "It's a marvel of reverse engineering," one of the lead scientists, a meticulous Yervesh named Dr. Alara, explained. "They managed to replicate the Void Whisperer's influence, but through purely technological means. It's a localized, amplified despair generator. Its purpose was to bypass the harmony signal," Xylan added, his voice grim, "to break down societal cohesion, to create a breeding ground for conflict. They would have used it to sow discord in critical systems, destabilizing governments and turning populations against each other. All without a single whisper from the Whisperers themselves." Vincent nodded, a cold understanding settling over him. This was the Warden's answer to the Enforcers' harmony initiatives. If they couldn't influence directly, they would build machines to do it for them. Over the next few weeks, the Enforcers conducted a thorough investigation, using the captured preacher and the analysis of the device to uncover more of the Warden's networks. They discovered that the preacher was part of a larger, decentralized cell, and that similar despair generators were being developed in other hidden labs across the galaxy. The Enforcers launched a series of coordinated raids, relying on Vincent's ability to detect hidden Warden presences and predict their moves. They dismantled several such labs, capturing more prototypes and operatives. Each victory was a small step towards securing the galaxy. But Vincent knew the threat was far from over. The preacher, interrogated by Enforcer specialists, proved to be a fanatic, resistant to conventional questioning. But Vincent's unique abilities allowed him to gain insights. He connected with the preacher's deep-seated convictions, his twisted sense of purpose, and found the cracks in his resolve. Not to break him, but to understand the ideology that drove him. He learned that the preacher believed despair was the only true path to awakening, that humanity was too weak, too reliant on false hopes. He saw himself as a messianic figure, bringing what he perceived as truth to the masses. A brutal form of enlightenment. "He's not just a puppet, sir," Vincent reported to Xylan after one such session. "He genuinely believes in their cause. He sees the Void Whisperers not as manipulators, but as liberators, freeing people from the illusion of peace. That makes him incredibly dangerous, and a terrifying example of how deep their influence can run." Xylan listened, his ancient eyes thoughtful. Indeed, the most dangerous enemies are those who believe they are fighting for a righteous cause. We must not underestimate the power of such conviction, even when it is twisted. The war against the Wardens continued, But it evolved. It was no longer just about open conflict. It was a battle of ideologies. A fight for the hearts and minds of populations. The enforcers countered the Warden's despair generators with their own enhanced harmony projectors, deploying them in troubled systems, spreading messages of unity, hope, and resilience. Vincent found himself at the forefront of this new psychological warfare. He worked with propaganda specialists, helping them craft messages that resonated with genuine empathy, countering the Warden's divisive rhetoric. He even addressed newly liberated populations, sharing his own story, demonstrating that despair could be overcome, that hope was not a lie. His relationship with Mach and Xylan continued to strengthen. Mach, ever the loyal protector, became his shadow, providing unwavering support and strategic advice. Xylan, the wise elder, guided Vincent through the complex political and philosophical nuances of the galactic conflict, helping him to understand the wider implications of his actions. As the months passed, the Warden's influence waned. Their cells isolated, their weapons neutralized. The galaxy began to breathe easier. But Vincent knew that the true enemy, the Void Whisperers, remained. They were dormant, their influence suppressed. But they were still out there, an ancient, unseen force. His mission, he realized, was not just about fighting the Wardens, but about building a galaxy so strong in its harmony, so resilient in its hope, that the whispers of discord would never again find fertile ground. It was an ongoing struggle, a perpetual vigilance. But Vincent, the human who had transcended his own trauma, was ready for it. His journey as a guardian of harmony had only just begun.